The Raiders not only lost their ninth straight game on Sunday, but they also lost their quarterback at the same time. That plus more on Monday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for December 9th, 2024.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome here, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. We definitely appreciate you, whether you're catching us wherever you find your favorite podcast or you're checking us out on YouTube. We appreciate it either way. And for anyone who's checking us out on Spotify and you get the year review and it lets you know how many minutes you spent listening to whatever you spent listening to, we definitely appreciate all the tweets and the texts that we received letting us know how long you spent with us throughout the course of 2024. And it's pretty incredible when you look at a Raiders team that is now 2-11 and still seeing all these dedicated minutes and times and all the folks that literally make the Locked On Raiders podcast their first listen. So we definitely shout you out, Raider Nation, and we appreciate you. But the YouTube page, that's Ari's baby right there. He takes care of that. Make sure we look good and sound good each and every day. He does a fantastic job. We appreciate him. He's on Twitter at Ari Produces. I'm on Twitter as well at your boy Q254. And if you want to be a part of the show, as many of you do, you can hit us up on the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line at 707-654-4693. As a matter of fact, that's how we'll close out today's show. Your calls and texts, plenty of feedback to get to, and we'll do that in segment number 3. Segment number 2, we'll talk about Aiden O'Connell. The fact that he went down looks like it's pretty serious, most likely going to be lost for the season. So what do the Raiders do next? Well, obviously they've got to turn to Desmond Ridder in the meantime, the short time, but what is the long-term look at that position going to be? Well, we'll do that. We'll take that look at it in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Here in segment number 1, just news and notes, and really it's just a recap of what happened on Sunday as the Raiders lost 28-13 to the Buccaneers and now have lost 9 straight. We'll jump right into it after I tell you about the title sponsor of the show, which is Prize Picks. If you go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL, use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL, you'll win $50 instantly when you play $5. I'll tell you more about them later on in the show, but let's go ahead and jump right into it. Just talking about the game on Sunday. It was an early kickoff West Coast time, 10 a.m. Pacific time, and it looked like the Raiders were sleepwalking early in the game. The Buccaneers got out to a 14-0 lead quick, fast, in a hurry, and I thought, oh boy, this is going to be a slaughter. I thought this was going to be one of those games that just you look back and say, what in the hell happened? Just kind of facepalm yourself, right? Just like, what in the world is that? Now, to the Raiders' credit, they did bounce back, but they just got off to an awful start. A lot of times they do a good job with, going from west to east, and it doesn't look like the time, the early kickoff really affects them, but it definitely looked like it affected them for one reason or the other on Sunday. But as I mentioned, really a lot of credit to them being able to buckle down and make a game of it. It was close at halftime. It was actually close even going into the fourth quarter. It was 14-10, and ultimately the Raiders lose 28-13. So Tampa Bay puts on 14 points in the fourth quarter to really separate. But man, it looked for a minute early in the first quarter. I was like, oh boy, this is going to be one of those that you want to walk away at halftime and maybe not return. For the game, Aiden O'Connell was 11 for 19, 104 yards, had a fumble, had an interception that he threw. He also had a touchdown run, which wasn't really a run. It was just basically a 1-yard sneak. But the inconsistencies started to show up again for Aiden O'Connell, and unfortunately for him, he got hurt in the third quarter, and looks like he's probably going to be out for the season. We'll talk about that in segment number 2. But that was the end result for him. 11 for 19, 104 yards, fumble, interception, touchdown run. And I think that it was pretty clear in that game how a lot of people were feeling about his overall performance. It's something I've been talking about all year long, that he was going to get an opportunity to show what he can do and see if he can be that franchise quarterback. And, of course, after the performance he had on Black Friday against the Kansas City Chiefs, a lot of people on this show said, hey, maybe he could be that guy, right? And some people have been convinced the whole time that he could be that guy. But, again, one of my biggest concerns with Aiden O'Connell was the inconsistencies, and it started to rear its ugly head again on Sunday. And unfortunately for him, it feels like the whole 2024 season is a season that he was going to get a chance to prove himself, and he never really quite got that chance because of multiple injuries. And that's really unfortunate, but that's just the nature of the beast. That's what the NFL is all about. Desmond Ridder stepped into action, 12 for 18 for 101 yards. Not a whole lot to write home about there. I think we all know who Desmond Ridder is and who he isn't. He's definitely not a franchise quarterback. But Brock Bowers, we've been talked about him in great detail on Friday about being a potential offensive rookie of the year. I think with the fact that the Raiders only have 2 wins, that's probably going to stop him from getting that award. He only had 3 catches on the day, 3 catches on 5 targets, 49 yards. I thought that he was going to be targeted a lot more because Tampa Bay did a terrible job covering the tight ends. Now, Big Mike got involved, which was cool. It was great to see, Big Mike, Michael Mayer, catch a bunch of passes, and he caught some really on the last drive as well from Desmond Ridder. But I thought that the tight ends were going to be a much bigger factor in this game, knowing that the Buccaneers struggle to cover them, and it really wasn't as big of a deal as I thought going in. But to Brock Bowers' credit, he passed Sam Laporta for the most receptions in a single season by a rookie tight end. He also passed Hunter Renfrow with 86 catches in 2021 for the most receptions through 13 games of a single season in Raiders history. So there's that. So right now he is the all-time receiving, as far as catches go, tight end, rookie tight end, again, passing Sam Laporta. He now has 86 catches on the season, still has 4 more games to go. Big Mike, I said, got involved in the action, 7 catches, 68 yards. Jacoby Myers, consistent, 7 catches himself for 67 yards, and he went into the game on a bad ankle, but he was able to, tough it out and play through it. Sincere McCormick, the running back, was the guy that I really wanted to focus in on to see if he can continue building off the success that he's had. He had another 15 carries for 78 yards. He looked really good. I could appreciate what he was able to bring to the table. And if nothing else, I feel like Sincere McCormick definitely could be a part of a running back tandem next season for the Silver and Black. I feel like he's definitely earned that in the action, the small amount of action that he's received. He's running hard. He's running behind his pads. He's really good at picking up the blocks and reading the blocks. The one thing that he does need to do better is in pass pro. It's something I talked about on after the Black Friday game against Kansas City. He still has to work on that and to continue to really master that so he can stay on the field all the time. But right now, as far as I'm concerned, Sincere McCormick, there's no doubt about it, should definitely be part of a nice running back duo next season for the Silver and Black. Defensively, K'Lavon Chaisson is continuing to evolve and really grow with this Raiders defense. And as I keep saying, it's evaluation season, so all these guys are proving what they could be for the Raiders moving forward or what they could be in the NFL. Chaisson's a guy that Tom Telesco picked off of waivers from the Jaguars, a former first-round pick. Not only did he get another half a sack on Sunday, but he tipped the ball and then intercepted it while he's falling to the ground. It was a really pretty awesome play. It looked really great. One of those that the Raiders don't normally get, but he was able to get that. Jack Jones had an interception. He got burned early in the game, gave up a touchdown. Then he came back a little bit later and intercepted Baker Mayfield right before halftime. Trayvon Merrick and Chaisson, they both had a half a sack. Darnay Holmes, he also had a sack on the day. The cornerback, Adam Butler, Amari Burney. And the Raiders had 4 sacks and forced 3 turnovers, and they still lost 28-13. And I'll say this. I feel like the biggest, really the swing in this game, if you didn't get to see it, go back and look at the first drive coming out of the locker room. The Raiders go 16 plays, cover 61 yards, and took 10 minutes and 20 seconds off the clock on the first drive of the third quarter. And Aiden O'Connell threw an interception. He was trying to get the ball to Brock Bowers. It was a terrible read. It was a terrible pass. There was no way that was going to be caught by Brock Bowers. That was just a bad decision on Aiden O'Connell's part. Just shouldn't have happened. And, man, you want to talk about deflating. You take 10 minutes and 20 seconds off the clock. You go 16 plays. The Raiders don't sustain drives very well. They do that and come away with nothing. That's just, you want to talk about a backbreaker, and it still didn't end the game for them, but that was one that just took the wind right out of the sails of the Silver and Black. Again, they still fought back. I'll give them credit for that. The defense continued to keep them in the game, but that one, man, when you look back at that one, if you want to just kind of summarize the Raiders season in a nutshell, just the first possession of the third quarter. Then later on in the third quarter is when Aiden O'Connell gets injured. And that's really, that's another way to summarize the Raiders season, really, is a bunch of injuries. He had got hurt early in the game. Looked like he had landed hard on his knee, and, it was either the knee or the ankle or maybe a combination of the two. And then in the third quarter, he's rolling out. He throws the ball. It's complete to Jacoby Myers. And Tampa Bay, the defender just pushes him in the back. It was definitely late. It should have been a called foul, an unsportsmanlike penalty. It should have been a 15-yard penalty. It should have got a first down. I didn't think it was that bad. He went to the ground. I was like, okay, well, he'll get up and be okay. He never got back up, and he actually had to be carted off the field. And he was in an air cast. His left leg was in an air cast, and then quickly the Raiders ruled him out with a knee injury. After the game, Antonio Pierce said that it looks like it's going to be really bad, but he doesn't know exactly the severity of it. So obviously this morning around 11 o'clock when we talked to AP, we'll ask him if he has any update on O'Connell. But it did not look good at all. And again, the score was 14-10 going into the fourth quarter, and the Raiders end up losing 28-13. They're 2-11 on the season and now have lost 9 straight games. And no Gardner Minshew, no Aiden O'Connell. So Desmond Ridder and what? Carter Bradley. Those are the 2 guys as far as quarterbacks, and Jacoby Myers, who would be the emergency quarterback. That's who they have on the roster as of right now. So what do the Raiders do with their quarterback position just for the short term and the long term? We'll talk about it in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about a couple great sponsors here on the Locked On Raiders podcast, including Hillsdale College. And time is our most precious commodity. You don't want to waste it scrolling through the same mind-numbing content for hours and hours. How can you spend it wisely to improve yourself? You can study courses like history, economics, the great works of literature, and a whole lot more. And our great sponsor, Hillsdale College, is offering more than 40 free online courses, including the ones I mentioned and more. Constitution 101, Introduction to Free Market Economics, The Great American Story, The Rise and Fall of a Roman Republic. I've actually had people tweet at me and say, hey, man, good looking out on that Hillsdale College. I actually went there and learned a lot. And again, those 40 free online courses are incredible. All of Hillsdale's courses are self-paced, so you can start whenever and tune in wherever. Plus, you can go deeper with readings, quizzes, discussions, or you can just enjoy the lectures. Right now, go to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost. It's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register. hillsdale.edu/lockedon. I also want to tell you about the title sponsor of the show, which is Prize Picks. If you love watching the game, you're going to love Prize Picks. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy. Whether it's football, basketball, or any of your favorite sports, Prize Picks makes your holidays bigger and brighter. And here is why you need to check it out. You can now win up to 200 times your money on Prize Picks. And this holiday season, they're actually giving away $30 million in rewards during Picksmas and offering 2 free picks in December. When your pick hits, Prize Picks makes it easy to cash out. You get your money in as fast as 15 minutes. So download the Prize Picks app today. Use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after your first $5 lineup. That's right. $50 instantly when you play just $5. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Want to talk about the quarterback position and the fact that the Raiders have lost another one and what looks like for the season. Aiden O'Connell went down late in the third quarter, late shove, carted off the field, air cast on his left leg, and was quickly ruled out due to the knee injury. So you want to talk about, and I don't want to say a tough break because, well, obviously it's an injury, and so it's like, oh, great play on words, Q. No, I don't want to say that, but man, I'll tell you, Aiden O'Connell's had a tough season, hasn't he? I mean, you want to go all the way back to training camp when he was battling it out with Gardner Minshew for the starting job. I thought he was going to win it coming out of training camp. He didn't. Minshew got it. Then Minshew stunk it up. So O'Connell got in. Then O'Connell got injured. Then Minshew went back in. Then Minshew got injured. O'Connell went back in after coming off of IR. Looked really good on Black Friday. Then looked, kind of back down to earth on Sunday against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then he gets injured for what looks like the rest of the season. So Desmond Ridder, heard him talking after the game. He said he's ready, he's comfortable, he's excited, he's fired up for the opportunity to be on the grass. So he'll probably be the starting quarterback the rest of the season. Right now, Raider Nation, the Raiders are riding a 9-game losing streak. If Desmond Ridder's the starting quarterback the rest of the way, I fully expect them to lose, right? And who knows? I mean, they got a game against Atlanta. I'm sure he's going to get fired up about that Monday Night Football. That's against his, former team. They've got the Jaguars coming up. They got the Saints, who probably will be without Derek Carr. He got injured on Sunday as well. Trevor Lawrence for the Jaguars is out, but the Jaguars, they happened to win their game on Sunday, which was probably a mistake on their part. And then, of course, they closed out the season with the Chargers. So most likely, they're probably going to lose the rest of the way. But I'll tell you, a team that's been riddled with injuries, I know you can't use that as an excuse, but when you lose your quarterbacks multiple times, and then I say quarterbacks multiple times, that's where you are. So with the loss on Sunday and also the fact that the Jaguars won, this is according to Tankathon. I know how some people get up in arms about it. Just hear me out. According to Tankathon, the Raiders, who are 2-11, currently have the number 1 pick over the Giants because the Raiders' strength of schedule is 533, and that's worse than the Giants' 544. Obviously, that could change in the next 4 weeks, right? So it's not said and done, but clearly they're in a position to get a quarterback. They're going to end up with we can all agree, top 3 pick, right? And so you look at the 2 quarterbacks that will be first-round picks, Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders. I'm not here to plead my case for Shedeur or, why this guy. I'm not here to do all that. I think everyone's pretty understanding that I think Shedeur is the guy. But again, this is that's a conversation for another day. But I think that with what we've seen this year, and again, I know it's been a small sample size with Aiden, and it's been start and stop due to injury, and there may be someone who says it's not really fair because he hasn't really had a chance to show what he can do. But sometimes that's just how it is. Sometimes, again, I say it all the time, your best ability is what? Availability. And he just hasn't been available. And I'm not saying that the injury that happened on Sunday was his fault. It isn't. But it's the NFL, and that's how things happen. Sometimes you get injured, and if you're not available, then you're no good to the team. And I do think that Aiden O'Connell has a role on this team. But I think that from the majority of this season, what we've seen is a ton of inconsistent quarterback play, whether it was Minshew, O'Connell, Ritter, right? A combination of three, whatever. The Raiders clearly need to go and get their franchise quarterback. So, again, I don't expect them to win any more games this season. Don't expect them to beat Atlanta on Monday Night Football. Maybe the Jaguars, maybe they'll be able to win that game. But, to be honest, I'm sure that there's not a whole lot of interest in winning that game at this stage of the game. What they have to do is, as a team, is continue to fight each and every game. Right? I said this on Friday on my radio show, Unnecessary Roughness on Radio Nation Radio 920. Like, I never pull for a loss. But a loss now is a lot more acceptable, right? I think it's easier to accept a loss these days, knowing the end result, than it would be in the middle of the season and just say, oh, well, hey, when this losing streak started, remember, their last game they won was in September. So these players in that locker room are starving for a win. But at this stage of the game, especially now that they're on quarterback number 3 and Desmond Ridder, I just don't expect them to get that. And that may be one way that Antonio Pierce keeps his job, is saying, look, I haven't had a consistent quarterback all season. Haven't had the quarterback that I wanted, and I haven't had a consistent quarterback all season, which he hasn't. Again, I don't know if that's going to be enough to save his job. There's been plenty of people I talked to over the course of the weekend before the game on Sunday that, feel that it's pretty much a foregone conclusion that he's going to be gone. I've also talked to people that think that it would be, pretty wild for him to get fired after 1 year, given everything that he's gone through. But I'm not in the front office. I'm not helping making those decisions, so I don't know. I've been as a matter of fact, that I think he should come back next year, but he has to come back with a plan. He has to sit down with the people that make the decisions, the Mark Davises, the Tom Bradys, everyone else that's in the Tom Telescos, all the people that are in that front office, and say, okay, this is the plan. This is what we're going to do. We're going to go get this quarterback with our first, second, or third pick, whatever it ends up being, right? Again, right now, according to Tankathon, they own the number 1 overall pick, and this is how we're going to move forward. These are the people that we're going to hire. These are why they're going to succeed. He's got to be able to roll out that plan if he's going to come back in 2025. And that still might not be enough. I don't know, because there's a case to be said, and some of the people that I've talked to over the weekend said, yeah, there could be concern, though, if you're bringing in a new quarterback, can he establish a coaching staff around that new quarterback and new players that can help build this team in the right direction, right? And so, with some of the mistakes he's made when it comes to the hiring of the coaches, Luke Getsy, clearly that was a mistake. James Craig, offensive line coach, clearly a mistake. That's why they're fired, right? And Joe Philbin, as the offensive line coach, the interim, has done a lot better. Scott Turner, as the offensive coordinator in the interim, has done a lot better, right? Those guys were there at the disposal of Antonio Pierce. If he wasn't going to hire Cliff Kingsbury to be the OC, Scott Turner easily could have done that job. I would have much rather seen this Raiders offense, even though the points aren't any better than what it was. At least the offense has rhyme and reason now. At least it makes sense. At least it looks like the playmakers are getting involved, right? It looks better. It's still not resulting in exactly what they need. They're still struggling in the red zone. I think they're 1 for 4 in the red zone on Sunday. That's obviously not going to get it done. But then again, this team is just dropping like flies, and it's one thing you got to deal with. In the NFL, I know there's plenty of teams that have injuries. You could look at the Lions, but they do have their quarterback. They haven't lost their quarterback, for the season. And the Raiders have lost 2 quarterbacks for what looks like the season. Again, we'll get an update from AP today. But, if you're looking at some of the quarterbacks, Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, those are the guys that look like they're going to be first-round picks. Dylan Gabriel from Oregon, number 1 team in the country. I know a lot of people are looking at him. Jalen Milroe from Bama. I'm a Bama fan. I think that he should actually go back to school for 1 more year and learn under Kalen DeBoer, but that's me. Carson Beck from Georgia has not looked very good at all. I know some people have talked about him because of his relationship with Brock Bowers, but he got banged up in the not the playoff game, but the bowl game, the SEC championship game on Saturday. Got banged up really bad. Plus, he just hasn't looked good at all this year. So I would pass on him. There's a case some people will make for Quinn Ewers out of Texas. Not me. I'm not really a fan. Garrett Nussmeier from LSU. I think he needs to go back to school as well. So honestly, when it's all said and done, Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, those are the 2 guys that I'm looking at in the first round. And if they were somehow to walk away from that first round without a quarterback, which I think would be a mistake, I know a lot of people say, well, I'd rather have Travis Hunter. I think you need to have a quarterback, right? I would like to have Travis Hunter on the team as well, just because I think he's fantastic and he's so versatile, being able to go both ways. But, man, the Raiders need a quarterback so bad, right? And we could say that Aiden O'Connell hasn't had the fair shot, but I think that we're all just kind of kidding ourselves. Again, I don't want to overreact. I hate that he can't prove himself anymore. I was going to give him the rest of the season to try to prove himself, but it appears like his season is going to be over. So that's why the conversation is here. I think we have a really good understanding and idea of the Raiders quarterback, what they have and what they don't have. I clearly feel like they need to get that franchise quarterback. Whoever you back, Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, or other, that's fine. But I think we could all agree that they need a consistent quarterback, someone who gives them an opportunity versus Mahomes twice a year, someone who gives them an opportunity versus Herbert twice a year, someone who gives them an opportunity versus Bo Nix twice a year, right? And then when you get outside of the division, you still got the rest of the arms in the AFC as far as the conference goes. But that's where I'm at. There's no doubt about it. Wherever the Raiders end up this season in 2024, whatever pick it is, 1, 2, or 3, they've got to get their franchise quarterback. I don't think there's any questions of that anymore. I'd love to hear your thoughts, though. 707-654-4693. That's the Locked On Raiders podcast voicemail line. Your calls and texts. We'll close out the show next. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about our great friends at FanDuel. It's never too late to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook. And right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can go to your app, and boom, you can make your bet. Going into the game on Sunday, Raiders and Tampa Bay was 6.5-point favorites, but they were only up by 4 at half. So maybe you thought, hey, the Raiders about to come out of the locker room. I like what they're going to do on this first drive. I think they're going to score a touchdown. Let's go put a bet on, the next drive by the Raiders is going to be a touchdown. Now, you would have lost that bet because they took 10 minutes off the clock and got nothing. That was an interception that Aiden O'Connell threw, but maybe you felt good about them, and that's the kind of bet you wanted to make. You can do that at FanDuel. Again, FanDuel.com. Join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and texts off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Let's start things off in Denver. Raider Eddie, he's calling to talk about head coach Antonio Pierce and the job he's done and what he thinks is going to happen at the end of the season. Here he is, Raider Eddie in Denver.
Hey, what's up? This is Raider Eddie in Denver. Hey, just want to ask you if you've changed your mind on AP. I know that previously you said AP needs another year. He's had a lot of injuries. He hasn't had his quarterback. Telesco wasn't able to make that happen for the team. But here we are Sunday after the game here, and I think we had a good chance to win this game or be in this game. It ended up not being close. I think AP has more clock management issues, calling timeouts at weird opportunities, weird points. Not managing end of halves and end of games. That's happening again. So that alone, to me, disqualifies AP. If he can't manage the team in critical situations, that's it. Sorry. I know there have been injuries, but I've listened to some other podcasts. The Raiders do not have the most injuries of any team in the NFL, not even close. The Lions have a lot more injuries than us. But if you can't manage a game, you can't use the timeouts correctly, you don't appear to be learning, you don't appear to be improving, and that's it. Sorry. Just want to get your thoughts to you. Have a good one. Go Raiders.
Eddie, thanks for the call. Appreciate you. It's always good to hear from you. And it's funny, you rattled off everything that was true, right? He hasn't had his quarterback. He's had a ton of injuries. He's had this, that, and the third, right? Offensive coordinator. And so I can make the argument of why Antonio Pierce should come back. I also can make an argument, just like you made an argument, of why he shouldn't come back. And I'll tell you this. I don't think that Sunday's loss was because AP made a bunch of bad decisions. I think, Aiden O'Connell fumbled the ball after Chason comes up with a nice interception, gives the ball to the offense, and then the very next play, Aiden O'Connell fumbles it, right? And then they go on a 10-minute drive to start the third quarter. Aiden O'Connell throws the interception, right? I mean, they turned the ball over multiple times, right? And lost their quarterback in the game as well. And there was penalties on third down, third and long. There was penalties that that gave Tampa Bay first downs, or they just didn't stop them on third and long. What I will say about the game on Sunday that I put on AP, the fact that they didn't look like they got off the bus ready to play. Right, Tampa Bay was spotted a 14-point lead, but then their defense rallied. I mean, they only had 14 points going into the fourth quarter. It was 14-10. Like, that was a ball game going into the fourth quarter, right? And he made the one challenge. I didn't know why he challenged that. I thought that was a bad decision. I think everyone in real time knew that Aiden O'Connell did not complete that ball to Trey Tucker. I don't know if he was just desperate, trying to hope that they would get it wrong. I don't know what it was. I have no idea. But I didn't really see a bad game called by Antonio Pierce on Sunday. Brock Bowers not getting the ball and getting targeted a lot, that wasn't on him. That was on the offensive coordinator. Scott Turner's calling those plays. So as much as we praise Scott Turner for making everything look a lot better, I mean, you can criticize him too and say you should have dialed up Bowers a lot more, right? Or the tight ends, like I talked about in segment number 1. So, I mean, it's easy just to get frustrated at a loss and say, oh, that's on Antonio Pierce. Not really. How many mistakes did the Raiders as a team make? Right? I don't put Sunday. You can have an argument for other games in the season. I'm not putting that game on AP. I'm putting that game on turnovers and not taking advantage of opportunities when they had it. Again, you go on a 10-minute drive, 16 plays to start the second half, and you come away with no points. You can't do that. You cannot. There's no way. And then he kicked a field goal late in the game that drew them closer and gave them an opportunity. All they had to do was get a stop. They get a stop, get off the field, but they got Desmond Ridder in there. Right, so I mean, once O'Connell went down, I didn't think that there was a chance that the Raiders were going to win that game. So I mean, it feels like you've already made up in your mind that Antonio Pierce in your head shouldn't come back, and that's fine. I think it's easier just to say that, or better just to say that, than ask me if I'm going to change my opinion. Because again, I'm not going to put that game on him. I think that at the end of the season, he has to sit down with the people that make the decisions, and he has to roll out his plan and state why he should come back. And I think that that's fair. Right? This is my plan. This is what we're going to do. This is who I want to hire. This is what quarterback we're going to get. And this is how we're going to succeed with them. If he could roll that out into the people that matter, not me or you, but the people that matter, then why not come back for the second year of what I believe is a 2-year deal? Why not? So, I mean, I think there's a healthy argument on both sides of it, but thanks for the call. I do appreciate you. Up next, got a text from B Prime in the 269. He said, Q, Bowers having 3 total targets going into the last garbage time drive is unacceptable. He should have a minimum of 10 to 15 targets a game, no matter what. McCormick looked good, but still needs to draft a guy, as Zeus also looked good at the end of last year. The offense needs to run through Bowers and Myers. That's from B Prime in the 269. I agree 100%. I agree 100%, especially with Tampa Bay struggling to stop the tight ends. I thought this was a Brock Bowers and Michael Mayer game. And Mayer, he had 7 catches. That's great. Some of them were in garbage time, like you mentioned. But, yeah, I thought that Bowers, and he's going to have games like that sometimes because everyone's going to be paying attention to him. They don't want him to wreck the game. But you're right. He definitely should have more targets. I said McCormick should be a part of a really good tandem next year. I still agree with you as well that they do need to draft another running back. But McCormick definitely has put himself into the conversation as far as I'm concerned. Thanks so much for the text. I appreciate you. Up next, got a call from ABA Ivan Davis. He's calling to talk about the injuries the Raiders are dealing with and what coach can deal with that. Here he is, ABA Ivan Davis.
What's up, Q? This is ABA Ivan Davis. I have a question for your callers that are celebrating this Raiders loss, the ones that's looking forward to the draft. Show me one coach in NFL history. It doesn't have to be even a current one. It can be, but as far as NFL history, go back as far as you need to show me a coach that can survive the hand that the Raiders have been dealt. Well, you've had injuries to just about everybody on the offensive and defensive side of the ball, including the second string, and you're basically playing with a third string, and they're not just injured, they're out for the year. Okay, O'Connell's likely out for the year, so now it's going to be the Ridder show for the rest of the season. Okay, show me a coach that can survive that, and I'd say fire Antonio Pierce. Just one. I'm not asking for a bunch. Just show me one. Oh, and the offensive coordinator is the exact same scenario. The exact same scenario that we've been dealt. Okay, for the whole season. Bad offensive coordinator, the whole bit. Okay, show me one coach that can survive that. And I'd say fire Antonio Pierce. He's going to be fired, but I just think it's unfair. I don't think you can. And if you can, then I stand corrected. Have a great day, man.
Thank you for the call, my man. I appreciate it. And right, I think the injuries definitely are part of the conversation. I don't think that the injuries just give Antonio Pierce a pass and say, oh, well, you've dealt with too much, so you're good to go. Again, I still think that there was decisions he made along the way that you can look at and say were not the right decisions, or the right hires, namely Luke Getsy. I think that was a terrible hire, obviously, and I think we all questioned it when he was hired. None of us were like, that's a great hire. I didn't think that was a great hire then, and it proved not to be, and that's why he got fired by the bye week, right? So, but again, if he can come back, as I've mentioned multiple times, and prove what he's, what he's going to do, or at least lay out what the idea is, then I think that there could be a case. But I mean, the injuries, especially the key players too, it's not just like they're injury to this guy on defense, this guy. I mean, you've had multiple quarterbacks now injured. Multiple quarterbacks are going to be out for the season, right? And again, I don't know that Aiden is out for the season. We'll get more idea later on when we talk to AP this morning. But I mean, anytime you take a guy off the field in the air cast and roll him out immediately, it doesn't look good. So as far as I'm concerned, he's going to be out. But again, I'll wait for official word from the Silver and Black. Thanks for the call, though. I appreciate you. Up next, and just got time for a couple more, got a text from Steve 2.0. It says, hey, Q, wondering what your thoughts are on the Sporting News article that references Mike Florio saying that there's a foregone conclusion that AP is one and done. Also, your thoughts on Prime, since it seems like Shador comes with Daddy. Do the Raiders just go ahead and replace AP with Coach Prime? I know it sounds a bit out there, but I figured I'd ask. Thanks for keeping us up all day every morning. Raiders, Steve 2.0. And thanks for the text. I appreciate you. And yeah, I mean, I've read that article. I've read multiple articles. I heard what Mike Florio from Pro Football Focus, or not Pro Football Focus, Pro Football Talk had to say. And I've talked to some people as well that feel like it's a foregone conclusion that he's going to be one and done. I don't agree with it because of a lot of circumstances that go into it, but that's just me. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see how, again, I don't know the Tom Brady effect. I don't know how much influence and what direction he wants to go. There's conversations that AP was never Tom Brady's choice, but Tom Brady wasn't part of the ownership at the time when AP was hired. So I don't know. Maybe Brady says, hey, I want to go after Vrabel. Like, that's the hot name that everyone keeps connecting to the Silver and Black. Maybe Vrabel's gonna be with the Raiders. I don't know. Right. But again, even if you bring in Vrabel, you better bring in a hell of a coaching staff around him. And especially someone who's going to be able to coach up that young quarterback. As far as Dion goes, Coach Prime, I think he's a college coach. I really do. I know that there's been conversations about maybe he's a Cowboys coach, and that's a Jerry Jones type thing to do. I just don't think I don't think that you want to go and take that challenge on right now. I mean, again, it's, Shador does feel like he's going to be a Raider. And I know that Dion has a lot of respect for the Silver and Black. I can see it happening, but I don't think it's a good decision. I think he's a really good college coach. I don't think what he does, the way he motivates and coaches, I don't think that style works in the NFL. But we'll see, right? We will see. There's been college coaches before that have tried their hand in the NFL. Some it works out okay for, others not so much. So we'll see. I don't think that that's realistic for the Raiders. But again, you never know. Thanks for the text. I do appreciate you. And we'll close out with a call from Army Raider. He's also calling to talk about Antonio Pierce and why he should be one and done. And then he also wants to talk about Aiden O'Connell. Here he is, Army Raider.
Hey, Q, it's your boy Army Raider. Just calling, after another loss, it doesn't even bother me anymore. I've had a couple of thoughts on AP and O'Connell that I kind of wanted to get in. This whole year I've been in the let's give AP one more year after this camp. And after watching games this week, Thursday, and then college yesterday and pro today, I'm actually I think it should be a one and done. And I'll explain why. I feel like as a coach, the CEO style coach archetype is harder and harder to do nowadays. Unless you're going to be a Dan Campbell who hired two elite coordinators, it just doesn't work. A head coach's best, what they're known for shouldn't be motivation. If you look at the great coaches coming up in this league, they're either offensive or defensive inclined. And with AP, I just don't think he's actually proven himself to have that. He hasn't even proven that he can be a good coordinator in the league, let alone a head coach. So I'd really love to, see us go after Ben Johnson or Jesse Minter after this year. I think that's the other reason I'm not in it, is you have two great options, one on either side of the ball, coming out this year as head coaching candidates. Number 2 with O'Connell, I know people want to swear up and down that he can be a franchise quarterback. I'm with you, as inconsistency just isn't there. Even before he got hurt today, and prayers up to him, man, that's rough. He was already having a bad game. So add in that he's an inconsistent guy, and also he's injury prone. I know they're major injuries, but every time the guy goes in, he gets hurt. And that's not something you can have in a franchise quarterback. Anyways, that's my views on it. I'm ready to out.
Thank you for the call. I appreciate you. And I agree. The coordinator hires need to be the most important hires regardless. If AP stays, if he doesn't stay, they have to be the most important hires, especially if you go and get a franchise quarterback, which I expect the Silver and Black to do because they have to. They need their franchise quarterback. They do not have him in the building. I think it's pretty easy to say that. So, if he sticks around, he's got to hit these hires. They've got to be home runs. If he doesn't, whoever they hire has got to be home runs as far as being able to coach these guys up. I mean, that's just the reality of it, right? And I hate that for Aiden that he didn't get the rest of the season and doesn't look like he's going to get the rest of the season to prove what he is or what he isn't. It feels like that, it's like the door got closed on him quicker than it should have, and it's unfortunate. But it's also the nature of the beast. And like I said, the best ability is availability, and it just stinks that twice now that he's gotten the opportunity to get out there on the field, out there on the grass, and show what his worth is. His availability has been all of a sudden taken away, for one reason or the other, broken thumb, and now whatever the knee issue is that we'll find out about. So again, I hate to say that it's not really fair because he didn't have a fair shake. But that's just kind of how it goes in the National Football League. So we'll see. I think Aiden O'Connell definitely has a spot on the team. I just don't think he's the franchise quarterback moving forward. But Army Raider, thanks for the call. I do appreciate you. And, of course, the jury will still be out on Antonio Pierce. That season might get wrapped up. Black Monday might come around where multiple coaches get fired, and he very well could end up being one of them. We'll see. Again, that's something that we'll have the answer to that sooner rather than later. So thanks so much for the call. I do appreciate you. Raider Nation, thanks so much for the feedback and obviously the support of the show as well. Again, we'll talk to Antonio Pierce around 11 o'clock this morning at the Intermountain Health Performance Center, get an update on Aiden O'Connell, and, just kind of see what's next for the Silver and Black as they, deal with more injuries, and, more injuries in a current 9-game losing streak. So until then, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.